Fantastic. Okay, again, I am Lisa Meyer. I am a licensed professional counselor. I have been practicing for 20 years, locally probably for about 15 years. It is a privilege to have an opportunity to talk to you today. As Angie mentioned, not only am I going to be educating and trying to talk to you about you and your middle schooler, but I am for real walking this one with you. My children are 10, 14, and 12. So I have a fourth grader, a sixth grader, and an eighth grader. So I have the full gamut of middle schooldom. And I have to tell you, compared to probably any other age of development, contrary to the insanity of middle school, I love my kids being middle school. It was the preschool age that about killed me personally. And so perhaps my trauma from there has kind of watered down some of the chaos that we do run into in middle school with all these changes that our kiddos are making. So as I talk to you today, it is just going to be a very natural inclination for me to be talking to you, and then me saying we and us, because like I said, I'm doing this, and it's an exciting journey for sure. And so what we're going to do first of all is that there is a lot going on with our middle schoolers, and I have my phone here for a reason because we are short on time, and I plan to talk a whole lot longer than I got. So we're just going to have to try to honor that. But I'm going to try to go through things not crazy fast. You have a pretty detailed outline. When you leave, you're going to get a lot more detail. So don't feel like you need to frantically write down everything that I'm saying, because you're pretty much going to be able to take home a lot of what I'm sharing with you today. So for sure, as our little people, remember how sweet and easy it was, how transparent our elementary school children were, and our middle schoolers definitely start to kind of retreat, and we lose a little bit of what exactly is happening in there. On top of, we find ourselves having these ridiculous arguments and conversations over the most inane things that go on, and you're like, why are we arguing about the proper way to hold a fork at the table at this age? And it's a big debate, and you're all pumped up, your kid's all puffed up, it goes down, and it's a big, ugly event. Is that something? Does that mean something? Okay, good. Okay. I was like, did I move too far forward? What happened? Anyway, and so there's just a lot of craziness that starts to happen. And one of the things I just really want to encourage you is that the insanity that we are running to as parents, the insanity is normal. If you feel like your kid has kind of gone out of their mind, or has somehow been abducted by aliens, or at least it took their brain at the very least, that is a very common and normal experience, because that developmentally, there is so much happening inside of our kids' bodies that is a great explanation for why some of that is happening. And so let me just kind of go into, as you mentioned, I'm going to hit a couple of different areas. Depending on time, I may skip over one or two, but you do, like I said, you'll have everything when we leave. But just to kind of go over with you too, just developmentally, the changes that are happening physically with your kiddo. As we do this. For starters, adolescence, especially early adolescence, is probably the time where the body undergoes the most and rapid developmental changes at any other point in life compared to that 0 to like 18-month age. And so you remember how much your little one was changing when they're so tiny and sweet, they're pointing. It's always exciting when they started pointing and then crawling and then walking, and it just seems to happen in such a short period of time. We have that same pace of development happening right now in your kids, except they're bigger, they're walking, they're talking, and so there's just a lot that's happening there. So the growth is really rapid, it's accelerated, and it's very uneven. Sometimes they're going to be shooting up, sometimes they're going to be getting a little chubbier, and so there's a lot that's happening along those lines. Boys and girls, they differ in this capacity. Certainly girls tend to get a head start like in their physical development about 2 years ahead of boys. And so that's a lot of times why fifth and sixth grade girls tend to kind of tower over the boys, which again, it's kind of goofy looking, especially, I don't know if y'all do little socials and stuff like that. I know at my children's school, they do a dance once a year for each of the kids. Anyway, it's hilarious seeing the little sixth graders in there, sixth grade boys with the sixth grade girls. It's just a trip to see it, but it's comical. They do obviously get caught back up Metabolism is just cranking, and it fluctuates just as much as their growth. So they're going to be starving to death, they're going to be eating everything in sight, and then they're going to go days where they don't really seem to eat much. And again, completely normal. What is the other aspect of that? Because I don't want to spend too much time on that. As their bodies are going through all these changes, it is really going to be important for them to be, for you as a parent to just doing your best and trying to make sure that they do have a balanced, nutritious diet and are having that physical exercise. The benefit of the physical exercise is exponential. Just the chemical change that takes place when your kid sweats to kind of combat all those crazy hormones that are flying all around is a tremendous benefit. Not to mention, obviously, as they're talking about just the different activities, there's great things that come from self-esteem, being able to identify and belong to different groups. My son, Nicholas, not terribly athletic, Lord love him, and he decided to join the football team at his school this year, which I was kind of amazed that he even made it, but turns out everybody made that team. And so I was honored that I didn't have to deal with the tragedy of not making the football team. And as it turns out, he was the punter, which again, not a super athletic position, but some skill. But his biggest thing, as a punter, you go in the football game, maybe, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 times a game when the ball, when they can't do anything with it. Anyway, so he wouldn't play a lot. But he was just really excited and never complained once about not playing a whole lot. But it meant so much to him that he had that jersey and he got to do all the team things. And so the belonging was a really cool aspect, on top of the fact that he was a football player. So he had these really rigorous workouts every single day. And he didn't even complain, which I was completely shocked because the boy does not even like to sweat, but somehow managed to pull it off. So as these bodies are developing, and like I mentioned a minute ago, one of the culprits is hormones, and yes, the onset of puberty. Yay! Do we not all love our children going through puberty? For sure, if you have not had the talk with your child to this point, yesterday would have been a perfect day to do that. Like I said, you want to make sure that your child is getting right information, that they're prepared to make this prepared to anticipate and expect the changes that their bodies are making. Deodorant is a good idea. Young ladies starting menstruation. These are all things that we don't want them to come into without a little bit of information. The other aspect of that too is just as obviously puberty does prepare us for adult relationships. And again, you want your children to have right attitudes, right values, and right behaviors. And you want to be the one telling them those things. So make sure you have those conversations. I know don't you want to go, look, she's talking about sex, don't listen. It's not a real thing. Shh, you're storks. No, we're really running out of time with the stork story. But anyway, so if you haven't had the talk, I want to encourage you. There's a lot of great resources that you can use to kind of help you navigate that, because it can be a little awkward. Let's see. Like I said, puberty, obviously very natural and normal. Very, very intense, and both physically and emotionally. Like I said, we have the development of the body, which as adults, we understand what that is. But as a parent of a middle schooler, it's important for you to realize that's why we see this moodiness. That's why they're just kind of all over the place, because just that surge of hormones makes them crazy just like it makes us crazy. The brain is developing. It doesn't change in size a whole lot. But the crazy thing, and this is where I call middle school brain child syndrome comes from. Because the brain, while it's not growing in and of itself, the neural pathways, so the way information goes from one place to another, the way we store it, the way we remember it, those are like rapidly changing because they're learning so much. And so they're coming about new ways of thinking. And so the brain just kind of reorganizes how it gets there. So it's doing that at a pretty high pace. Simultaneously, the part of the brain that helps us make decisions, helps us with reasoning, anticipating consequences, what else? Just general planning and functioning. That part of the brain is also developing really, really, really fast. So if you have the most essential working aspects of our brain changing at a high pace, and then the little pathways that they connect information to different parts of the brain changing really, really fast, This makes our kids do the dumbest and most irresponsible things ever, ever, ever. I remember just like I said, I have 2 middle school boys, and right now they're fully up in everything that we're talking about today. And we're going to soccer practice, and Caleb jumps in the car, and I'm like, okay, you ready to go? And I'm looking at him. He didn't have his cleats on. I'm like, dude, where are your cleats? Oh. All right, hurry up. We're going to be late because we are always late. Runs in the house, comes back out, sits back down. Dude, where's your soccer ball? Oh, for real. Like, we are good. Go. Anyway, and I kid you not, a third time, where's your water bottle? The soccer ball and the water bottle were literally this close together. In the kitchen, he grabbed the ball, left the water bottle. I'm like, for real, what is happening? And again, it's just like, and we want to kill them. Do you want to kill them when they do that? Oh my gosh. I thought getting them into the car as toddlers and infants was insanity. This is a whole new challenge, trying to get them where they need to be on time with all the stuff that they have. But I want to assure you, it's not that they're slackers. They're not lazy. They're not irresponsible. Maybe there's a little bit of that, but the reality is their brains and their bodies are changing so quickly, they kind of don't stand a chance. And so as a parent, I want to encourage you to practice and exercise grace. I am confident as a Christian that God gives us children to kind of sanctify us, work on that grace, work on that patience, love the little booger when they completely make you nuts. And so, again, just it's very, very normal. And I always say, the 2 or 3 brain cells that are rubbing together right now, making whatever happen, I'm excited about that because the rest of the brain cells are so busy growing that body, moving those hormones around. And because, like I said, everything is changing. Their skeletal muscles, their bones, their muscles, their organs are even growing. Like, there's so much that's happening here. Let's see, anything else I want to share with you about the brain? But for sure, that middle school child brain, that is probably the death of me personally, because I'm like, for real? Are we doing this again? Intellectually, intellectual development, there's a lot that happens here through middle school. And you're going to see a whole range if you start looking and comparing your kid to other kids. And I just want to tell you that it's just normal, because intellect is something that we develop at different capacities. We have biological limitations to intellectual capacity to some extent. And so there's lots of variation, but there's also lots of changes. Some of the cool things that happen as they develop intellectually is that they definitely become curious about a wide range of activities. And I'm just listening to the presenters before. It is really important for you just to encourage your kid to give something a try. It may not be their heart and their passion, but for sure, if they decide that, yay, I want to, I don't know. I mean, there's just lots of different things that they could do. Just go with it if it makes sense. Because again, they're just kind of test driving what's going to work, what's not going to work, and they have a lot of different ways of doing that. Generally, they are going to much rather prefer to learn in a very active capacity as opposed to passive. So sitting in a classroom becomes increasingly challenging, and you have to understand why. There's so much going on physically and chemically. Their metabolism, they're restless, they're exhausted. And so learning in a passive capacity is a huge challenge. But it's a lot more interesting when they're a little bit more hands-on. For sure, when they're learning stuff with other people, with friends involved, they're actually a lot more successful in that capacity. This is one of our fun ones. They are increasingly able to think through ideological topics. And so this is where you kind of see, maybe an introduction to politics they kind of take an interest in, or different sort of issues that as grown-ups we debate and go back and forth with. This is definitely an age where they really become very interested in ideological conversations. They enjoy picking a side, and they love to argue their position. These are our budding attorneys and humanitarians coming online. And again, that arguing is so gut-wrenching, miserable, because they are just so insistent and they don't give up. And if you are a willful person, I'm a very willful person, I am right up in there for a good couple of minutes until I realize, hello, you're the grown-up. You can leave this conversation. It's going to be fine. But definitely, they love to have a heated debate. And again, even that heated debate, it's not necessarily an attempt to be rebellious or rude or even disrespectful. They're testing a new skill that they've kind of come across because they're thinking a little bit more broadly and a little bit deeper. They're looking at the impact on humanity or the environment or whatever the case may be. And so they're developing a little passion in that. And so they're testing their ability to defend and explain their point and their position. And of course, when they're trying to defend their point and position, why they think that this particular bedtime hour is not for them, it's not as exciting of a conversation for us, but fundamentally, they've got some pretty good reasons why maybe you could stay up a little bit longer. But it does become a little intense. And so I just want to encourage you in those moments, because it happens in a lot of different areas of our conversations with our kids. It's just, again, one, take it with a little grain of grace. But also, it kind of, like I said, because they're testing that skill, it's kind of like when they were a toddler and they were just learning how to walk. And you would put your child down for a nap or to bed at nighttime, and then they would be really restless and they wouldn't quite settle in. And what do? They spent that restless time, they're kind of pulling up on the crib rails, standing there, because they're realizing they've got a little bit more control over their legs and they've got some strength. And obviously the independence to be able to move around, that's super cool. And so, as toddlers and infants, as they went through those different milestones, they would be testing and testing and testing. This is that. When they're really arguing with us, again, part of that, there's a hint of rebellion. We all have a little bit of that ugliness in us, for sure. But really, they're excited about a new skill, and they will use it at every opportunity. And it's not always convenient, but just to try to remember in your own mind that this argumentativeness is a skill, and that skill is going to continue to grow. And again, it's going to kind of morph into some of the other areas of development that we talked to when we look at the moral and social development. And how they start making decisions in relationships and how they spend their lives. So yes, the arguing does make us absolutely, positively insane. And we'll talk about some ways when we look at the communication component of just how to get out of those conflicts. Because for sure it's important for us, particularly as the adult, to figure out how to get out of that situation first. Because it can be challenging. It's challenging for me because I'm always like, it is not that way, and this is why. And then we just do this all day. Super fun. Let's see. As we're moving into, oh, my pages got out of order. That's sad. All right. Hold on. Sorry. Oh, man. So what's next on your list? Actually, this is when I move to your list. Social, intellectual, psychological, or moral. Oh, that page didn't even, do you have moral? That's sad, I'll come to my old one. Okay, let's hop over to moral really quick. All right. Trying to think if there's anything else we left from the intellectual part. Okay, here we are. Before we do that really quick, I apologize. Oh, what happened to my page? Figures that would happen. You try to anticipate, like I'm a praying person, so I was like, Lord, please order my steps, like all these things. I did not pray for page order, so I probably missed that in my prayer this morning. I know one time I did a talk and I, similarly just kind of prayed over every aspect of that, but as I walked up on stage, I tripped. Totally forgot to pray over that too. But it was good. It was a good little icebreaker to just be like, okay, and this is me. Anyway, so, and I do apologize if I do seem a little informal. I'm a very human person just like you, and I very much want our conversation to be a little bit light and playful. This content, I know you didn't sign up for a Psych 101 class today, and so I'm trying to make it just a little bit interesting, but if for no other reason, like I said, this information is to help you realize that most of these super ultra annoying behaviors that our kids exhibit and the struggles that they're running into are normal. There's nothing wrong with your kid. It's normal. And just our capacity to be able to come alongside our children and help navigate this dicey little stage of development really is going to help us as parents because we have less of that mommy, daddy guilt thing that goes on. And then we just build up stronger, children that have good self-esteem and confidence. So before I dive into the moral development, just, and looking at just how they form thoughts about themselves and other people. So definitely they start doing a lot of more reflective thinking. So they become a little bit more introspective and developing just how they see themselves. And in this capacity, we have to be really careful because what we say to them leaves a mark. It did before, sure, but at this particular point in development, they are so sensitive and so fragile and so annoying sometimes. But at the same time, like we have to be careful with our words. And so just it's important to remember as parents that they're incorporating everything that we say and everything that we do in each of our conversations, and they're equating that to themselves. You're lazy. Not the best parent statement in the world, right? It may be true, but you're acting lazy or you're procrastinating is probably a little bit better way to have it that. Our kids are increasingly inquisitive and observant. They tend to be watching every move you make. And for sure, that was true when they were 2. Remember that time that you were sitting in traffic and then you heard your kid talk about the traffic situation from the back seat? Has that ever happened to anybody? Yeah, I hope so. It happens. So this is that same thing, again, except they're watching you now and they are looking to emulate that for the rest of their lives. And so our behavior matters. Our words and our behavior need to sync up. This is definitely a stage of development where do as I say, not as I do, completely loses merit. In fact, this is probably one of the leading causes that children are disrespectful to their parents because your big, fat hypocrisy is flashing in neon to them right now. And so I think it's really, really important, and I don't know how close to home this hits, but just the reality of our world. But if we're telling our kids, don't use drugs, don't drink alcohol, don't whatever, swear in traffic, if we're doing it and telling them not to, it's not going to have the same effect. And so it's just really important that they are paying attention. And as a clinician, when I sit in my office and visit with my clients, I'm taking notes. It's not like our kids are taking notes and write. I mean, they may write stuff in a diary how much we made them mad that day or the worst parents ever. But they don't take notes that way. The way that our kids are learning is they just watch us every single day. Like they're completely indoctrinated. In fact, from the time of birth up to until about 13 years old, we're pretty much how they gauge the entire world. When they look at us, they learn about what women do, what men do, what fathers are supposed to do, what mothers are supposed to do, how we solve conflict, how we feel about these types of people, and so on and so forth. And so it's just really important to be attentive to just making sure to the best of your ability, because we're all struggled and flawed to this capacity, but just make sure that your words and your actions are really syncing up, because for sure they will let you know, which is the other exciting aspect of our conversations with them. What was I going to say? Oh, doesn't matter. All right, so moving on into the moral development. All right, so moral development, basically all that is just their ability to make choices, principled choices, so consider some principles in there, and then just how to treat other people. Their principles and values and many of the attitudes and beliefs that they hold right now are the ones that they're going to maintain into adulthood. They tend to typically are going to be moving away from blanket acceptance. So when we say, because I said so, or it just is, that's not going to fly any longer. And so it's just going to be really important for us to sort of take the time to explain why we feel the way that we do, or why we're different from other people. Because during this time of life, they are really trying to just kind of figure out their own set of values. More often than not, and most of the time, they are going to come back to the parents' values or the values of another key adult in their life. But one of the cautions, I guess, that I want to share with you is that you need to know the people that are influencing your kids. Because they are very, very impressionable. And if so-and-so's dad is so cool and so fun, but he's, knee walking drunk every Saturday through the entire football season, I don't know if that's the adult you want your kid to be hanging out with. But he's so fun. Anyway, and so I want to encourage you to just be attentive to who is influencing and spending time with your children. I think at this age, because our kids are developing that increased capacity for socialization and divided interests, they're definitely getting out of your house a lot more. They're going home with friends. Maybe they're having sleepovers and those types of things. I think parents of this generation, and I'm you, remember, I'm you. Y'all are probably give or take 5 or 10 years on either side of me, probably. And so I think there's a tendency, particularly with our fun little phones, that we just like, hey, Susie's parent, how are you? My daughter's coming home, yay. And we don't even see them. Like you wouldn't recognize Susie's mom in passing. You need to talk to these people. It's not convenient. It's never convenient. It's hard. Adult relationships, friendships, we don't have time for that as adults. We're trying to raise kids. We've got jobs, these houses that don't clean themselves. Like there's a lot that we are very, very busy with. But again, the importance of you knowing who your kids are hanging out with, taking the time, especially sleepovers. Personally, I need to see their house. I want to meet the mom. I want to meet the dad. Do they have a nice dog? I mean, I just want to know those things. And again, we just have to take the time to do that because we set our kids up. We just don't want them going in blind, for sure. And so please take the time to get to know where your kids are going because your kids will tell you, just drop us off over at the avenue. We'll be back. Susie's mom's there. Let me tell you, I got caught in this situation just recently. My son wanted to go hang out with some friends at the collection. I was like, okay, that's cool. I knew one of the parents of the kids that were going. And I said, so who's chaperoning? Oh, her mom. Okay, that's cool. But I was not feeling very good about it. And they were going to just come pick up my kid, and they were just going to go. I was like, I'll tell you what, I will drive you there. I will meet Susie's mom, and we'll go from there. And so, yes, Susie's mom was actually at the collection, and she was there, but she was going to sit in Barnes & Noble on her laptop while the co-ed group of people wandered about the collection. No. Yes, it's cool. Yes, lots of other kids' parents are much cooler than you are, and they let their kids do that. This is not a good idea because our kids are also way into experimentation. We'll talk about some of those social and moral challenges that a little bit further as we look at just some of the social development that's going on. But you need to know where your kid is. You need to at least guarantee that there's going to be a chaperone. And it's not, I know your kids are going to hate it. We are super not cool right now at all. But the reality is that your safety and who's influencing your kid and what is happening is there. And that peer pressure is real. That day, I did consent. I did go. I did meet Susie's mom. She was all set up in the little Starbucksy end of Barnes & Noble, ready to do whatever she was going to do. And I was like, yeah, this is not going to work. Looks like I'm wandering around the collection for the next hour or two with a bunch of children. And which was not, I was not excited about it, but I was not going to leave, and I had already gotten that far, and I knew that this was important to my son to go and hang out with these particular group of people. And so I ended up just chaperoning him. The funny thing was is that I tried desperately to give them some space. You know, they would be maybe where the Kingsridge Run sign is, and I'd be just hanging back here, just walking. But the crazy thing that happened is that they kept coming back to me. They were dying to talk to me. I was paying attention to them like I cared. And then they'd go in a store, and then they come out, and they're like, Mrs. Meyer, where do you want to go next? I'm like, I had laundry I could be doing that. Do you want to fold some laundry with me? We can go back and do that. But they appreciated having me around. I know they don't think you're cool, but the reality is that you're a cool adult if you're hanging out with them. And so take the time from your very busy schedule to do these things. Like I said, I totally went into it with a really hesitant, crappy attitude, but it was really the coolest thing ever because I got to know these little kids a little bit better, which was super fun. Obviously, I did get to meet the mom and that kind of thing, but it just meant a lot to my son, which shocked me. I said, he's my 8th grader. Anyway, so just take the time to meet these parents because, like I said, these are the people that are influencing your kids. And as we'll talk about in just a second, these peers are even more powerful than any of us combined. And so to know and be aware and have relationship with them. All right, moving into the moral development. Okay, so we're in moral development. We need to move away from blanket acceptance. Okay, idealistic and fairness. How many conversations have you had with your kid? It's not fair, right? Totally normal. And again, just them trying to come around to our way of thinking and hoping that the world is all going to be peace, love, kumbaya. That's all. Like, it's not full on 60s, but they definitely would love everything to be easy peasy without a lot of work. That work ethic she was talking about, whew, she's real on that one. We gotta really help them with that one for sure. But for sure, as they start to become idealistic and really start appreciating what's fair and what's not fair, this is the beginning, so not the finishing point, but it is the beginning of them being able to consider how other people feel. For sure, at this age, their problems are so profoundly unique. They are the first person ever to have dropped their books in the hallway, and it was horrible. And they were so embarrassed. Or they're the only person who didn't have anywhere to sit in the entire cafeteria, and maybe it looked like this, and there were all these chairs. There was nowhere to sit. Anyway, so everything is so huge. But it does begin to help them start shifting gears. And like I said, this is the beginning of that. So yes, they are profoundly selfish, all about me. And the reality is that's not even so foreign to us, because the truth of the matter is that unless you and I are in a conversation, we are me, myself, my stuff, my time, my workout, my phone, my people, my. And then we talk, and then we come out of us for about however long that goes on. And then we're back to, my day, my shoes, my hair. Anyway, and so we're very selfish by nature. So it's not that they're acting so mutant and weird. It's just a lot closer to the surface for a lot of us. Moral decision making. This is a big one. But something kind of cool to just recognize here. Boys and girls kind of solve moral dilemmas from different perspectives. Boys tend to come at things from a perspective of justice. They see things as right and wrong, and that's how they're going to figure out we're either in or we're out, or it's protect or destroy. Like it's a pretty tremendous sense of justice, but that's how they reconcile just moral conflict. Whereas girls tend to take things from a much more interpersonal perspective. They're thinking about their relationships and those types of things, and so that's how's Susie going to feel if I did this. But again, that aspect of moral decision making really starts to crystallize, I will tell you personally, a little bit further through the middle school experience. But for sure, the friends and people can be, well, I can't wait to talk about social stuff. It'll be super fun. All right, so some challenges that we have. For sure, our little bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, budding humanitarians will pose a lot of unanswerable questions about life to us. They want to know why we have to hate this particular people group, or why this and why that. They're not going to accept because, or it just is, or it's just that way. They need a meaty response from you. And I want you to, again, just kind of see this. This is not a challenge to your intellect, but let this be an opportunity. You know, when we talk about that communication and how that gets kind of dicey at this age, this is a great time. If you don't know the whys and the hows about it, figure it out together. Find some time. And so see it as an opportunity to kind of help work them through that. For sure, they also just, you know, they've done pretty much everything that we say. We like this, we like that. This is what we do. We don't do that. And so they've definitely been a little bit easier to talk to from things being just black and white. As middle schoolers, they're finding the gray, which again is not an entirely awful situation. Because the reality is life happens in the gray. It's good to know what's right and to what's wrong. But life is happening in the gray. So increasingly, they are coming at just solving moral dilemmas with some gray. They're finding, well, but if they worked really, really hard and still didn't pass their test, I think they still should be able to go out with their friends tonight. And so they start looking for the gray area of just solving moral dilemmas. Trying to hurry, a little bit hurry. They are not good at making sound, moral, and ethical decisions. Now they're testing and debating, and this is how they're developing those morals and those values. But because they make some pretty bad decisions, I need you not to be frustrated with your kid, because a lot of times they're doing the same stuff again and again and again, whether it's procrastinating or picking on their sibling, whatever the case may be. I need you to just, again, try to come at this and realize just how important at this particular point in your child's development your parenting really is. Because while they are increasingly independent, and they're really cool to have some conversations with them when you're not battling it with them, but they still need a ton of parenting. And I think, it's particularly challenging if maybe your oldest child is in middle school and you've got all these other little people. It's easy not to attend to this middle schooler, but I want to encourage you that your middle schooler needs you as a parent probably more than ever. And again, if all these normal developmental changes are not enough, that's not even the crap that's going down around them. And so it's really going to be important for us to continue to parent your kid. Allowing your kid to fail. We don't want our kids to fail. I'm a mama. I don't want my kids failing. Y'all, your kids are in middle school. Please let your kids fail. Do not let them stay home because they didn't finish their project. Do not teach them how to lie to their teacher why they didn't do their homework. You need to let your child fail of all times in their development. They are old enough to, again, they're reconciling these differences. They have these morals and values that you have imparted to them, and now they're making some decisions. Sometimes those decisions work out well, and a lot of times they don't. If we do our helicopter mom, and we come in and rescue Johnny, Susie from whatever crisis may befall them. Look, here's my first ding dong. Ding dong, wrap it up. Well, the good news is we're darn close to where I was hoping to stop. But if we swoop in and save our child from, 10 points taken off a late assignment, or maybe they got too many conduct marks and can't go on a field trip, please let your child fail. If you rescue your child is not going to place the connection between their bad decision and their inability to have whatever it is. In middle school, even academically, it is very important. Everybody, and I don't mean to step on anybody's toes about this thing, but academically, your child's failings in school, the really only shortfall of that is that they're not going to be prepared for the next step. That transcript means right now. And yes, we don't like to see the F's. I hate them. The C's, the D's. Some households, a B is an epic sin. That was not me or my household. But I don't have kids that do that either. I don't have kids that do that. I know where they're at, and we're good. But please allow your kids to fail, because right now they've got this great safety net. Everything's going to be fine. When your child fails, you are going to equip them. The school is going to intervene. They're going to provide the resources, the know-how, the experience, how to pick themselves up, recover from this crisis that has occurred, and move forward. And I know it, and you know it. Every disastrous decision that you have ever made, if you have an ounce of intellect, you learn something from it. Do not protect your children from learning valuable experiences when the impact to their overall life is minimal. Obviously, when it's a life or death situation, yes, do something. I mean, seriously, like, they only have 2 brain cells. They are not looking when they cross the street. Scream, do whatever. rescue them. But don't save them from that bad grade. Don't save them from a bad performance and why they didn't get as much playing time. Don't save them. Don't go to the coach. Put my kid in. He missed practice 3 times this week. No. You do your child, we do our kids a huge disservice when we rescue them from natural consequences, because the reality is we're not preparing them for life at all. You overdraw your bank account, boom, they will let you know. You forget to pay your taxes on time, boom, they will let you know. If you go fast on 400 at just that right time of day, boom, that officer will let you know. Life has a very short learning curve, and that's the benefit of failing, is that when we fail, we learn faster than someone telling us, than even someone them watching. So please don't rescue your kids, because again, this is a critical element to their moral development. All right, in the interest of time, I'm going to really just, all right, spiritual development's fast. We're going to and we'll gloss over the psychological, because the social is more important. Spiritual development, as it turns out, is something that people really hadn't even thought of much until like the last 40 years, and that being important to middle school kids. But as it turns out, it's a really important aspect of their development that we need to pay attention to, because these kids have such an ideological hunger, and they're looking for meaning and purpose in their life. Their spirituality, their faith is a critical element in finding meaning, finding value, and how they fit into this world. As parents, I think it's very, very important for us to aid them and support them in their spiritual development. I am a firm believer that spiritual conversations should not be limited to Sunday or Wednesday, but spiritual conversations, just like conversations about the rest of life, it needs to be happening all the time. This is what makes it real. And so if we're just doing it at certain times, then it's just something we put on, and it's something we take off. But given the impact and the value of how they see themselves, how they find purpose, how they resolve conflict, and really just the lens that they look at the world, it's a pretty critical element. I make a note in here too, just again, this is one of those do as I do, or do as I say, not as I do. If you are just dropping your kid off at a church activity and then driving away and getting a latte and doing some shopping, big contradiction happening there. It's important. You can't miss youth today. Go, go, go. You got to go. They get out of the car. You go get your latte, okay? So again, they're watching. Is faith really important, or is it just important because mom's got stuff to do, or mom and dad need a break? And again, it can be that. Like sometimes we do need that. But again, if we want their faith to be a critical element in how they make decisions and how they identify their purpose and reconcile themselves with the world, this is something that again, is very much that we need to partner with them. Psychological development. Okay, so there's a little bit difference because I know we have kind of a broad middle school here. We have the 5th grade through the 8th grade here. And so just to tell you a little bit of difference in their psychological development, definitely this is their identity. And also just a period of time where they quest for that independence. 10 and 11-year-olds typically see themselves by the stuff they do. I'm a soccer player. I'm a lacrosse player. That's just kind of how they see themselves. Whereas the 12 to 15-year-olds, they are seriously, feverishly experimenting and exploring with themselves through a variety of activities and interests. Sometimes daily, like I'm lacrosse. No, I'm going to be a baseball player. No, I'm going to be in robotics, whatever. But for sure, they're picking up on their individuality more and their uniqueness. This is probably one of the first times in their life where if they have an ethnic, they're going to notice their ethnicity. And they're going to sort of increasingly start identifying with their own ethnicity and increasingly will identify more with that particular group. The other thing that we see too is as we start recognizing differences in ethnicity, again, as parents, it's going to be important for us to demonstrate the same attitude we'd like our kids to demonstrate about different ethnicities. For sure, peer versus parent approval is a huge, huge battle for our children. They are actively seeking, listen to this, they're actively seeking, because as they put on these different things, like they're picturing themselves, how I'm going to be as a grown-up. So they're actively trying to figure out their adult identity, like what they're going to be like an adult. They want your approval, so adult approval, and peer approval at the same time. Can you imagine? That's a tremendous amount of conflict. You have such competing allegiances. Is it with the friends? Is it the parent? Do I see myself as an NFL player? Like there's all these things that are pulling them in 1,000 different directions. And let me tell you, it is a tremendous internal conflict for them. And this is why they are intense, unpredictable, moody, restless, erratical, and completely inconsistent. Go figure, right? And guess what? It's normal. There's nothing wrong with your kid. Don't stick them in a therapist's office. I mean, love your kids if they're having a real bad time, but the truth is this is completely normal. Completely normal. So as a parent, we have to take a step back from the chaos. Let the tornado wear itself out and then see what they need. But for sure, their conflict between their peers and how they see themselves and wanting our approval is epic. I'm going to stop before we go into social development and just let you stand up and stretch for 2 minutes or refill your cup or go to the bathroom because I know I can start to see you glaze a little bit, and it's okay because I do try to be. But let's take a second real quick here and do that for your reference, because I do just want to kind of equip you. And like I said earlier, our kids coming out of elementary school and transitioning into middle school, as I was just talking to a sweet woman up here a minute ago, is that everything was going so smooth, and then all of a sudden, the wheels are coming off our kids. And I think as parents, we have a tendency to think that, what have I done to this kid? We're about to go to high school, and then they were just talking about college. And to be honest, when she was talking about all that college stuff, my chest was so tight because I was like, what? I have to start thinking about college now? Which someone had told me a couple of weeks ago I needed to do that, which was good. I have an 8th grader. Anyway, it's just really stressful. It's not, so let me just do that. It's not you. It's not your fault. You haven't failed your child epically, as you've seen biologically, physically, chemically in their little brains, intellectually. There's just stuff happening that you and I don't even have any power over. And so don't be discouraged as a parent. It can be so super discouraging, especially when you do have those bad mommy moments. I call it my mommy with 4 heads, when she is just over it and she shows up. I always feel really bad about that. But we'll also talk to you in a few minutes when we talk about conflict resolution, how we can go back to our kids and apologize, and our demonstration of humility during those failed parent moments that you failed. It is so critical to that relationship to go back and talk to them about that, because my fear is forever, will they come see me at Thanksgiving? When I need diapers, will they bring some over when they come by? I worry about how all that's going to pan out for the future, and we all come from, various dysfunctional families in some form or another. You don't have to say it out loud. So there's things about our own experiences that we don't want to transfer onto our kids. And so I just want to encourage you that a lot of the stuff that you're running into with your middle schooler kid, it's not so much your parenting and everything that you've done up to this point. It really is a lot that's going on with them. But again, one of the reasons I'm here today is to remind you that your parenting is still, 1, very, very, very important, and 2, we need a bigger scoop of grace, just immeasurable amounts of patience, and we've got to have enough self-control to be able to take ourselves out of their tornado and pull it together and then deal with what's happening. And so I just want to encourage you. We're not failing as parents. It's just kind of how it goes. And the cool thing is it's a stage, which means it ends. It's going to end. And so that's super fun. So we're going to plow through social development, and then we're going to go straight into our communication component after that. For sure, social development is way behind physical and emotional development. There is a profound need for our kids to belong. I was talking about my son, Nicholas. He's just happy to wear the jersey, doesn't care if he plays. He's just cool. And again, we just talked about just those fierce alliances that they have between parents and peers, and just being in a capacity to be calm and compassionate with our kids. One thing that's going on in their peer groups that is really kind of an important thing to be aware of, on top of knowing these people that are texting, emailing, sending pictures, possibly videos, or even on social media, and that could be a whole nother talk for a whole nother time, I assure you. But your child's, just how they fall within their peer group is of critical importance to them. For sure, with girls, it's who's my best friend, or they're my best friend this week, but not next week, or she used to be my best friend, but then she stole my best friend, and now I hate her, and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, it's real. With boys, it's a little less animated and relational. But for sure, even among boys, there's a pecking order. And again, where they fall in that pecking order has a huge impact on your kid and how they see themselves. And so as they run into these mini soap opera dramas with their people, as obnoxious and stupid and petty as all the stuff that they're about, please take time to sit and just listen. And mostly it's just listen. I want to discourage you from wanting to tell them how they need to handle that situation, but I really want to encourage you just to listen. And I think if you can't help yourself at the end of their whole explanation of blah, just ask them if they would like your insight. Again, we know the peer situation most times is not life-threatening, but it is important for us to value the anxiety and stress and fear and drama that comes with that. And so again, to try to just, instead of like, well, that's stupid, just don't be friends with her anymore and it'll be fine. No! That's the group. If you're not in the group, then you're alone. You sit at the lonely table at lunch. Anyway, and so we want to be sensitive to what's happening. And if we have the opportunity, again, to equip them, they're going to be a lot more open to hearing what we have to say if we actually care what they're saying. And so just realize that this peer situation, as ridiculous as it seems, and I don't know if you remember it, I just barely remember some of the girl drama that I went through, and I do remember it was pretty upsetting if someone's not your best friend or they quit inviting you to do stuff, and those types of things. For sure, the other big thing socially that kind of comes up, as I said, they're growing in their own personal independence. At the same time, they have this huge desire to conform. I'm always just tickled when I see a group of middle schoolers and even high schoolers to some extent, when I see them out and about in town or at the movie theater or something like that. Like they're all wearing the same stuff. Like they're all wearing their little black and white whatever and their cute little boots with their jeans rolled up, and like they're like all look the same. So there's that desire to conform. But then we see the other extreme of that, where they're like, I am my own person, and today I'm going to put a little purple in my hair, or just whatever. So they find a lot of ways just to kind of come into their own identity. And like I said, they're going to vacillate back and forth between those things, and it does create a little stress for them. But again, totally normal. Along the lines of that peer group interaction and those just being very, very intense, pecking orders, best friends, one of the big things that comes online in middle school, probably more than any other season of life, is bullying, for that very same reason. Just these relationships are intense. Pecking order is real. And when anything gets out of line, or if people feel slighted or betrayed or whatever the case may be, children, they can act really ugly. And we need to be sensitive to that particular issue. I feel like, and I don't know, y'all are ish my age, like I don't really super remember that from my world. And as I think about and just appreciate, just given just I read lots of boring clinical magazines, but what increasingly I'm aware of is that we've just invited, with technology and social media, we have really just invited a whole nother element that honestly we just didn't have. And yes, things have profoundly changed. The fundamentals have not, but certainly the methods have. And so we just need to be sensitive to bullying, because there's just so many different ways that can happen. I mean, usually someone could write a bad note about somebody and maybe pass it, or accidentally the person that they hate saw it back in our day. But anyway, so with texting and that kind of stuff, social media, we really have to be vigilant about what's going on in those areas, and be responsive immediately to bullying. And basically, and I'm sure your staff here has told you, you utilize any aspect of administration, teachers, people, parents that you need to curb that, because obviously, A, we want to protect our kid from people like that. B, we need to help the family that's struggling with the grumpy, angry kid. And again, if you're that parent that has the grumpy, angry kid, don't be discouraged. But I would definitely say that that's one of those moments where it's probably going to be good to bring in some extra support. So we just need to be sensitive to that. This next part cracks me up. For sure, our kids are very vulnerable to social media, as I mentioned, and social media influences. So what your kids see and what they're doing is what they want to do, what they want to be like, and their whole world focuses around those people. So we see all those people in pop culture. So back in our day, like it was like New Kids on the Block, or Duran Duran, or all these little teen idols that we had. Ricky Schroeder, oh my gosh, I thought for sure I was going to be his wife. And then one day it occurred to me that I was not going to be his wife. Like, he would never know me, and I was so devastated. But I remember back in the day getting a 3-prong notebook and hole punching some holes and cutting every picture out of, like, 17 magazine or whatever, Bop magazine. Remember that one, Bop magazine, right? And I would cut and have all my pictures of Ricky Schroeder. And then one day I was like, he's never going to know me. Like, he does not know how much I love him. And I was like, that stinks. And I threw it away. And that was the end of Ricky Schroeder in my life. But for sure, our kids, this is that. Like, these teen idols are big. Know who they are, know what they stand for, know what their music is, know the videos, what they look like. If you don't know, you are welcoming influences into your kid's life, and you don't even know it. So please just be aware of that. The one little fun thing socially that starts to happen at this age, and y'all, this one took me completely by surprise. Romance. Boys have cooties, girls have cooties. That was a real thing. But it changes. It is the craziest thing. So my son, I'm real strict with technology. My kids are like Neanderthals compared to everybody else. But my son only got a phone in 7th grade, and he has so many restrictions and limitations on that. I won't even try to explain them to you. But we do have a full user agreement that explains every detail of that particular thing. But last summer, he was talking on the phone. I make my kids talk. I'm a therapist. We talk to people. And he was on the phone pretty much like every day, calling this little girl Athena, and they would talk and talk and talk. And I just like, that's so sweet. That is so good developmentally. Yes, we are moving right along. And then one day he got off the phone, and he just came bebopping into the kitchen. Oh, yeah, just smiling. Hi, Mama. Need some help? Oh my God! Do you like that girl? Do you like her? No, I don't. We're just friends. Are you kidding me? No, they've been talking for a month on the phone, literally every single day. And he came in there, and I was like, oh, his little heart's all pitter-patter. Anyway, it happens. They start noticing each other. I don't know, I put on the flyer, boys that used to pick on them, the boys are doing double takes down the hallway looking at them because they look so cute, or their hair's so flowy and golden. And I mean, and the same thing with the girls. Look at his eyes. Aren't they dreamy? Like, it is the funniest thing. I was not prepared for that. And I have to tell y'all, as a mother and as a therapist, oh my gosh, the profound curse that comes with this. It is so painful because, I know stuff, and then like this, I didn't even see that coming. Like, I was like, where was I for that one? And then I screw something up, and then my kid has some little hiccup in his character, or personality, or temperament, and I'm like, yeah, I did that. But anyway, it's just the craziest thing. But I completely missed the romance boat all together. Like I didn't see it, and then boom, there it was. I won't go into how I manage and regulate and oversee all that, but I discourage dating completely. I'm fine with kids being friends, but I do, as adults in our marriages, we know that comes with a lot of weight. And as mentioned by the plethora of stuff I've already told you about, they don't mean it. But it's real, and it is part of their social development. And so just be aware that's coming online. Be prepared to have conversations. Talk to your husband or wife about, are we going to date? Are we not going to date? Are we going to be boyfriend and girlfriend? How's that going to work? But these are important conversations. I'm going to encourage you to do ahead of time, because when your head is spinning and you're trying to figure out how you're going to handle this, it's a lot. So just watch out for the little romance bug. But it's important, too, by that same token, to validate the realities of that. So be approachable with your kids. Normalize their feelings, because like I said, it's good that they're, it's normal, right? It's normal. Birds, bees, it's all normal. But at the same time, too, by having these conversations, you'll be able, again, to reaffirm the values and the expectations that you have for your children. So anyway, so that concludes our developmental part. So let's plow into this communication thing, which for sure is something that can be kind of beastie. Communicating with our kids, and probably the first thing to think about is just some of our barriers to communication that we have with our kids. Let me just finish this real quick. Biggest barrier in your home. Biggest barrier. I did that on purpose. I don't even know what I did. It has something on here. I don't know what that means right now. But no, this is your biggest barrier to communication. And guess what? It's not your kid's phone that's the problem. It's yours. Culturally, there's an amazing phenomena with this thing. As a therapist, I have resisted this. I've had my iPhone for 4 years. I know, gawk, be surprised. I did have a flip phone right up until 4 years. I was fighting it to the bitter end. But we are profoundly addicted to this particular piece of technology. I need you to own that. Again, our kids are watching us. If you're on your phone all the time, I guarantee you look unavailable. You look unapproachable. Probably your spouse looks unavailable and unapproachable when they're on their phone, and you don't want to do them. You kind of feel unimportant. You kind of feel like they don't care. Got some time to spend together, but, well, they're over there on Facebook, right? Our phones are a problem. It is going to be a good idea, and it's a challenge, particularly because most everybody has horrific habits around this particular piece of technology. I want to encourage you to have boundaries, not where it goes in the house, although that's one of our rules. But we have blackout times at my home, 7 p to 7 a. No phones. They plug up in our dining room, which happens to be the most unused room in our entire home. We don't need to go in there. But that's where the phone goes. When people come, when my children, my one child, I just have one child with a phone. But our phones are always out visible until that 7 p.m. time. You need to check your phone. You walk over to it in the kitchen, and you look at it, and you put it back down, and you go about your business. But 7 o'clock, we're all done with our phones. If there is an emergency, someone will dial 911. If there's something horrible has happened to one of your family members, they will send carrier pigeon, rocket, your neighbor. Somebody will come and get you. We don't need our phones. Before our phones, people used to poo-poo television. TV's starting to look pretty good compared to how awful these phone things have become in our lives. But you, as a parent, are completely unapproachable and unavailable when you are on your phone. And if you don't have rules, limitations for your child, not only does your child continue to be too busy for you or doing something important or gaming, because I guarantee they're not doing anything super important on their phones at any time of the day. We're missing huge opportunities with that. And so to have boundaries around those things not only improves the quality of your relationship and the opportunities for communication, but just like everything else I've told you today, you are paving the way for the future. You are raising wives. You are raising husbands. You are raising providers and homemakers. I am so heartbroken when I see this generation coming up, and they have infants and toddlers, and these mamas are on their phone. They're on their phone pushing strollers. They're on their phone in the grocery store. They're on their phone in the car. And these are prime interaction moments. While the child's eating in the morning, they're catching up on Facebook. Anyway, or all those other things. They've got cooler stuff. Facebook is our oldness, by the way. There's cooler stuff out there. When we say Facebook, we just date ourselves. But anyway, but your cell phone is the biggest barrier to communication in your home, your technology, your iPad, all those things. So again, your modeling behavior is critical in the area of communication. Everything from the way you say it, how you say it, and when you say it. In order to have decent and open relationships of communication with our kids, we have to be intentional. There's enough in this world to keep us busy for all time and space, to be honest with you. There's lots of distractions at my house. The laundry never, ever, ever, ever ends. I could do that forever. There are endless TV shows. I mean, we could really just be busy doing actually legitimate stuff, hauling kids to practices and games. But if you're not intentional about carving out some time to sit down with your kids each day, how many days are you going to let go by until you finally check in? And then why? And then there's a disconnect. Same things happens in our marriages. You don't tend to your marriage, and y'all are just trying to survive, keep the kids alive, make sure there's enough money to go around to pay all the bills. And then you turn around 7, 8, 15, 25 years later, and you don't really know this person. Things start feeling kind of dicey. Same thing with our kids. Take advantage of the time you have. It's a small window. Y'all, I'm tripping. She's talking about college. I gotta think about PSATs now. That's stressing me out a little bit. But we just have this tiny window. It's coming. They are going to be in this world during this time. And if we don't take advantage of our opportunities, we are suffering at our own hand. We are literally choking and being the hand that is doing the choking. So I want to encourage you, be intentional. And it doesn't have to be huge. You can just sit on the porch and visit. Take advantage of some time in the car. We don't use technology in the car. It's dangerous, remember, and it's even unlawful. How many of us are proud of breaking the law? We break the law a lot. And we're showing our kids, by the way. And again, talk in the car. Talk at dinner. We can still do that. It's a lost art. We can bring it back. We can make it cool again. But it's so valuable. People get so discouraged why they can't talk to your kids. You're doing things every hour that just build a barrier. And again, they need you desperately. So please make that time to hang out and talk. It's, again, not a time to be cavalier, not a time to be complacent. They need us more than ever. And I will tell you, if you want your kid to completely stop listening to you immediately, say the 4 worst words in human history. We need to talk. Let me tell you, you can say that to anybody. Nobody wants to hear what you have to say. No one. We need to talk are the scariest 4 words in all of human communication, because you know what? There is never anything good that comes after. We need to talk. And then maybe you try to clean it up in your mommy voice or your daddy voice, saying, we should just really talk more. No, that almost sounds worse to me, because I feel like I'm going to get a story about grandma or just I don't even know what I'm signing up for. And so when you want to engage your kid, you're going to have to be a little creative. Hey, did anything completely ridiculous happen at school today? Exactly, or was something funny? Was anybody late? Who was sick in your class? These are engaging ways to have an actual conversation. But if you say, we need to talk, or we should talk more, I don't want to be there. I do not want to be there. You're telling me something that it might be true, but I don't want to necessarily hear about it. Your kids know that. So please just remove those combination of words from your vocabulary entirely. All right, critical strategies. All right, so this is boots on the ground, things that you can do. And oh my gosh, and they're not in here moving stuff. I'm in so much trouble. Okay, so timing and presentation. Do not try to have a conversation with your kid when they're in another room. Do not have a conversation with your kid when you don't have eye contact, right? Because if they're not looking at you, or they're watching the game, or they're on their phone, I guarantee everything you've said to them has gone over their head. Presentation. If you come in too hot, too hard, too fast, too ticked, they're not listening either. You might be right. You might feel real justified in your anger, but they have gone into defensive mode. They are no longer listening. In fact, they're waiting for you to take a breath or run out of content, and boom, they're going to let you have it right back. So your timing and presentation of all communication needs to be intentional, purposeful, and thought out. When you talk to your kid, whether you're correcting a problem or trying to identify a problem, you need to stick to one subject at a time. If you're irritated because they won't make their bed, let's talk about the bed. Let's talk about the laundry. Don't talk about the failed homework. Don't talk about how they haven't helped with the dog, dusted, whatever it is. Talk about one thing at a time. You start bringing these laundry lists of things for people and things to do. They're not listening. It's overwhelming. It's too much. They quit. La, 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 la. Okay, so this is that. Sticking to the subject and just taking care of what's tangible in the moment. Hitting below the belt. Sometimes our kids really aggravate us, and we say ugly things. We need to avoid that. When they say something rude and sassy to us, we're like, no wonder he doesn't want to be friends with you anymore. You're a jerk. Okay? Don't take advantage of information that you know is sensitive and turn it around and dump it on them. It sounds awful, but you know it happens. Because and especially in those moments where they're just all full of themselves, we want to do anything to get that to shush. I'm going to tell you, when they're all full of themselves, the best thing you can do is just walk away. It's going to be fine. Because it's not likely to follow you, and it's going to be a little thrown off by your new approach to the la 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 la, and you're just like, got some laundry, right? Anyway, so just don't hit below the belt. Don't use things that are painful or insecurities against them. And no violence. Violence is anything that would scare a 2-year-old, is the way I present it to my people. If slamming doors is one of your things when you're all huffy and mad, cabinets and drawers, and let's not be violent. That's violent. That's violent. It looks angry. It looks upsetting. Really, we want to make sure that we as adults are not acting violent. Again, we want to be approachable. Assertive communication versus non-assertive communication. Really, what that looks like is it's I statements. It is telling your kid, I am sorry. I understand. I know that's hard for you. Instead of you did this. You did that. But again, these are just ways that we try to keep the communication open and flowing. The way that we talk to our kids is going to have a direct impact on their self-esteem. And the reason being is that they're around us more than anybody else. Like I said earlier, everything they learn, probably the first 13 years of their lives, all that stuff is all us. They've just been watching us. And so again, our example is really, really important. When your kid is acting some peculiar way, a little withdrawn, a little isolated, I want to just kind of give you a better way to approach that. Most people will come up to their kid, are you sad? Are you depressed? Are you mad at me? Let's not be that pitiful, parents. But when your kid is acting a certain way, I put it on your little paper too. A great way just to kind of bridge that gap is to say, you seem distant. How can I help? Or what can I do? Or you seem angry. What can I do? Or how can I help? You may be right in assessing that they're angry, but if you say, are you angry? Even if you're right, you're going to shut down communication because it's like we're in their head. And it's an encroachment to them. And so when you acknowledge what you see, you seem angry, and then you tag on there, what can I do or how can I help? You're going to get a conversation. You're going to get information. They're either going to say, oh, well, I'm not angry. I'm just tired. Oh, well, that helps. That's good information. Or maybe I am angry, and then you get an opportunity to find out what's going on. Or maybe, you seem tired. What can I do? I am tired. Can I sleep in a little bit later tomorrow and somebody else walk the dogs? Okay. We can do those things. So how we approach that awkward, grumpy, something's going on is just acknowledge what you see and then just send in a rope. What can I do or how can I help? Y'all, you can do this with your spouse. You seem stressed. What can I do? You seem distant. How can I help? This is how we get to talk. And again, it opens the door. If you, like I said, our insecurity or uncertainty or imposing how other people are thinking, it is such an offense, and it shuts conversation down. So I wrote that out on your things, and so you just have that. You seem whatever. How can I help or what can I do? Confronting undesirable behaviors. This is my favorite one because not everybody likes to confront people. It is so necessary to confront people, particularly our kids. And so information is power. The way that we confront people matters. Otherwise, again, we lose our audience. And so this one is pretty simple too. When you insert their annoying behavior, I feel one emotional word. When you roll your eyes while I'm talking to you, I feel disrespected. Pretty succinct, right? It identifies a problem, which they, by the way, can't deny. I mean, they might, but let's not go there. And then they know exactly how that behavior made you feel. So we are equipping them with information. They have 3 responses only to that. 1, I'm sorry. Don't we love that one? Don't expect it. The second possible response, outside of them being deaf or having some cognitive shortcoming, they are making a mental note. This is the only place in all of counseling psychology I ever say it's safe to make an assumption. If they're not deaf, they heard what you said. They have no shortcomings from a processing standpoint. They heard you and have just decided not to say anything back. Fine. Or the third option, which is generally the most popular, is that when you say, when you tell them, when you roll your eyes, I feel disrespected, they go into a diatribe, an explanation, a rationalization, a justification, blah, 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 blah. Let me tell you what you need to do. Because you're all done. You've identified the problem. You've explained to them the impact of that particular behavior. And anything else you say is going to water down that point. And if you are going to water down that point, we're in trouble. So I encourage you with that. You're done. No matter what they say, whatever the rationalization, justification is, you're finished. Either change the subject, or if you don't have enough self-control in you to not say something, the only thing I would let you say after that is, I just need you to know how that makes me feel. Do you have soccer practice this afternoon? Transition out. Because we want them to get the point, because it's going to continue to fall on them, that chunky statement, because they can't deny the truth of it, and we've included all the details. It's a very, very powerful way to identify problem. Discipline in your home, it probably takes a variety of different forms. You need to figure out where your child's Achilles is, use it much, use it consistently, and use it often. The other thing that I want to add to that is that you and your spouse have got to be united on what that is. If you don't like the way that your husband is dealing with this particular situation with your child, I need you just to hang out and stand by your man. You can talk to him after the fact that you didn't think that was the best thing, but if you go in there and swoop in and be like, you're being rude, he didn't do that, da-da-da, your kid is getting away clean with whatever it is that just happened. And while you may not like that approach, a united family, united especially in discipline, you are stronger together. If your kid realizes that y'all come at things from different ways, your kid is going to be splitting you, and talk about putting some pressure on your marriage. And so I just want to encourage you, back up whoever's dealing with whatever. You're adults, you can do it offline. at another point in time and come back to it. And a lot of times what may happen is you talk to your spouse and you were a little hard on him with that. Oh, yeah, I kind of was. Guess what? Boom. Go back to that kid. You know what? I was talking with your mom, and I didn't handle that very well. I'm sorry, Betty. That's going to go a million miles. Not only that, we got to deal with the problem. So take advantage of that. Conflict resolution, I'm going to go through this really fast because I don't know that we may be eating lunch here today too. I don't even know. So I'll try to go quickly, and hopefully the information that you have will kind of equip you a little bit further. So if I touch on it enough, you'll be able to connect the dots. But just emotion and logic. We are either emotional or logical in any given moment. We are never two at the same time. If we're solving a problem, we need logic to be present. If you or the child that you're talking to starts becoming emotional, you need to stop. Take a break. We're all old enough to remember the problem and just come back to it a little bit later, which is that timeout. And the way that looks is you're upset, I'm upset. Let's talk about it later. The other thing, too, is we don't always have to discipline and deal with conflict in the moment. It can wait. We remember that you were rude and sassy or that you hit your sister in the car or whatever. We can talk about it later. Wait till you're calm and they're calm. The other thing that we can do in these arguments, especially those big debates where they have all the answers, be like, you know what? That's cool. I'm glad you think that way. And you're done. Like, just leave. We don't have to finish it out. And again, we're modeling these behaviors for them. I talked about united front. And the power of an apology. So I hate that we rushed through those, but I know it's about to get really crazy in here. And I appreciate y'all that have stayed over, and I appreciate your commitment. But like I said, I'm happy to hang out. I'll hang out back there if you have any questions or comments. There's lots of ways to get a hold of me if you need any support, encouragement. The other thing, too, is I know a lot of people. So if I'm not a person that can be a resource to help you or your family, I've been doing this a long time in this area. I can definitely point you in the right direction. So thanks, y'all. I appreciate it. Thank you.